rivalry week, and what a week it is for Virginia football. The Cavaliers will host Virginia Tech at Scott Stadium with plenty on the line. It's more than bragging rights, it's an opportunity to go to the ACC title game in Charlotte. We'll preview the matchup and more coming up on the Good Old Podcast.
No, it's fun. I mean, I don't really get caught up too much in it. I think I just kind of stick to my routine, and I'm pretty boring. I'm pretty even kill. I mean, it's once I get out there on the field, I kind of like to let it loose and really get everyone rolling. So, yeah, no, I'm pretty boring though during the week. I don't really get caught up too much in it.
Definitely enjoyed playing in the rivalry games. Only because it brought out, the best teams in both teams, and everybody came to play, and everybody came and filled up the stands.
Is it fitting that it has to go through them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so for sure. I think it's a great opportunity. I wouldn't want it any other way. It's going to be one of the most fun games I've played in. I think it's already been. We had a great week of practice last week, and it's already been a good week so far this week. So it's been a lot of fun. This is kind of a different week. The intensity, you just kind of feel it. Getting towards the end of the year, championship phase, state rival implications, it's all, it's been a lot of fun. So,
we're focused on Virginia Tech. We're not looking too far ahead in the future. But obviously, it's not hard to miss. People are talking about it. But, being able to just keep your, focus on going 1-0 because, we got to handle business this week or we don't get the goals that we want. So, it starts by this week. So, but, you leave it to your focus of going 1-0 each week and, focus on what you got in front of you. That's the biggest thing.
Really, the big thing was, I kind of said it earlier, was, sure, there's a lot of pressure on us and everything like that, but, seeing it, pressure is privilege. That's what we've worked to put ourselves in this position, and also, too, to put ourselves in this position to have this opportunity. I think it's just be grateful for it, and I think if you're grateful for the opportunity and really appreciative of it, then I think you can go take advantage of it.
It means a lot. It really would mean a lot to the program for everything that fans want to see, everything that the team worked for, and finishing the season off strong. So to be very good.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Good Old Podcast. I'm Jacquie Franciulli for Wahoo's 24/7. And you just heard from Chandler Morris, Jamari Taylor, Antonio Clary, and James Jackson as they talk about the big rivalry game for Virginia football as they face Virginia Tech at Scott Stadium on Saturday. It's a very big game for Virginia because there's a lot to play for on Saturday. It's a chance for Virginia to stamp its ticket to Charlotte, where they'll play for the ACC championship game and also keep the college football playoff hopes alive. So we're going to preview that matchup coming up on this week's episode. Before we get going, why don't you like this video and like this channel so that you're notified whenever there is new videos, and also head to wherever you listen to your podcast and leave us a 5-star review. Before we get to that game, I do want to mention a couple of recruiting notes because, as you expect, this is a very big in-state rivalry game. It's facing Virginia Tech. James Franklin was just named as a new head coach of the Hokies last week. Virginia Tech is going to have a big official visitor weekend in Blacksburg while the team is playing in Charlottesville. James Franklin is hosting a lot of visitors, trying to secure those signatures. Meanwhile, Virginia is hosting a lot of visitors themselves this week, including a number of their commits in both 2026 and 2027. Obviously, early signing day is next week, and Virginia is still involved with a few 2026 targets. So we're following all that at Wahoo's 24/7, and including a new crystal ball pick that I placed on Tuesday morning. On Tuesday morning, I put in a crystal ball pick for North Cross wide receiver DeMarcus Brown. DeMarcus Brown visited Virginia for the Washington State game, and he is expected to be in town on Saturday for this big rivalry matchup. Spoke to sources, and I feel pretty good on where things stand between these two. Obviously, this would be a very big win for Virginia. Virginia has 3 current commits in the 2027 class from the state of Virginia. They have 4 overall with Sean Curry, a tight end, also committed as well. So Virginia, if this happens, if Brown decides to commit to Virginia, then that would make it another in-state win. And while the first three, Gene Jones, Lonnie Andrews, and Derek Fisher, all from the 757 area code, Demarcus Brown is from the Roanoke area. So obviously, we'll keep tabs on where things stand as things develop. But for right now, we think things are trending towards Virginia. It's trending enough that I did put a crystal ball pick on Tuesday morning. So we'll keep track of that moving forward. And we also included another trend meter on where things stand with several in state playmakers with for Virginia, especially in the 2027 class. I know we still have 2026, but there's a lot of movement in that 2027 class when it comes to a few in-state players. We did all that on Wahoo's 24/7 on Wednesday morning. If you're not a member, we are currently having a 75% sale, which means you can get a full year for just $30, and it works out to $250 a month if you break it down. But yeah, that's going on right now. That's our Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale. So yeah, that goes until Monday at 11:59 p.m. So if you want to check it out, you can go over to Wahoo's 24/7. But let's talk about this Virginia Tech Virginia matchup. The big headlines, obviously, heading into this game is Virginia linebacker Cam Robinson will not play against the Hokies. Unfortunately, Robinson is now out for the rest of the year. So even if Virginia, gets to Charlotte, Robinson will not be available. He's tore his ACL in that win over Duke. In the beginning, it was thought that maybe it was a bruise. There were a little bit of hope there that Robinson was going to be fine. Unfortunately, he is required to have surgery, so he will not be available for the rest of the season. That is a tough break for Virginia. It is no doubt about it that Robinson has made a big impact for Virginia since returning for that Stanford game. He probably secured several wins for Virginia. I mean, look at that Louisville game, pick six. You got the 2-point conversion stop against North Carolina. You can just keep going, right? I mean, you can also look at the Cal game as well. So there's a lot of opportunities there for him. And even in a loss against Wake, he did block that punt. So again, Cam Robinson is a big loss for Virginia, but it's not all bad news when it comes to injuries for Virginia. Kevin Wingington and Ben York are expected to be back this week, which is great news for an offensive line that has been hammered with injuries the last few weeks. So that's good news for UVA. Unfortunately, running back Noah Vaughn and wide receiver Jaden Thomas are not expected back this week. Tony Elliott said they might be a week or so away from returning, so not playing against Virginia Tech, but possibly being available for Virginia in postseason. So not great news there, but it's not season ending for both of them. Both of them are dealing with ankle injuries. So let's talk a little bit about this game against Virginia Tech because there's a lot of things that are going on. And we're going to have Kolby Crawford from VTScoop join us in the second half of the show to talk a little bit more about the Hokies. But right now, what are the scenarios for Virginia? It's pretty simple, honestly. Win and you're in. So Virginia just needs to beat Virginia Tech and they're qualified for the ACC title game, which means they have still the opportunity to secure a spot in the college football playoffs. But what happens if they don't win? What needs to happen? So according to the ACC office, SMU and Pitt need to lose, but UNC needs to win as well. So those are the three things that need to happen if Virginia loses against Virginia Tech. So if Virginia loses against Virginia Tech, SMU and Pitt need to lose, and UNC needs to win. So SMU's game is traveling to Cal, and Cal is going through a coaching search. So that'll be an interim head coach. So that is that situation while Pitt is facing Miami, and UNC also has their big rivalry game. So that's the situation. Easiest path, though, UNC win and they're in. So it's very simple. The last time Virginia needed to win to get into the AC title game was 2019, where Virginia did beat Virginia Tech. So last time Virginia came out of the bye week, I know we made a lot of saying that Tony Elliott and his staff have been unbeaten coming out of a bye week. But that was tested a lot against Washington State. So on Tuesday, when we talked to a few players, I asked them a little bit about the bye week last time and what they learned going into that from coming from that bye week to the Washington State game, what they learned coming from this bye week facing off with Virginia Tech, what changes they did. And this is what they had to say.
Became a leader that week, more of a leader that week. From we had to find a change, within the offense to get us back on track. So really, it was just honing in on the details.
One, maybe we didn't understand quite how to handle the bye week, I guess, as players. Um, and we came back yesterday, and I thought yesterday was our best Monday practice we've had. We looked fast, we looked refreshed and ready to roll. So I think everyone kind of took care of themselves over the weekend and um understood. I think everyone, and me included. I mean, I was eager to get back to it on Saturday. Just watching games, I was ready to get back to it and get back to work. So I think that's just kind of the thing in our locker room right now.
We just, a lot of us leaders have been speaking it all week, just, being able to start fast and not let the last bye week that we had, you know, determine like affect this game as well, like it did the Washington State game. But yeah, it's really just, having that focus of, you got to prepare every day like you're getting ready to play a game, regardless of if you're playing a game that week. So I think this week we did a tremendous job of, or this past bye we did a tremendous job of just, playing fast and practicing the right way and really locking in on the details and focusing like we were playing a game Saturday. So that definitely trickled down into yesterday's practice. Monday practice was one of our best practices of the year for a Monday, and being able to come back on a Tuesday and have our best Tuesday practice in front of us and just get ready for Saturday.
So both Antonio Clary and Chandler Morris mentioned that they had one of their best practices on Monday coming into this week, and they understand what happened last time, and they did approach that with the team. So as we prepare for Virginia Tech, what are some of the things that are important to remember? What are the kind of keys that I've had? So first off, Virginia's offense works when the run game is there. We saw that against Duke when Virginia was able to run the ball over 200 yards. They were able to become very efficient on the offensive side of the ball and efficient in the whole game. I mean, they were able to control Duke and was able to run comfortably. I think the scoreline actually doesn't show how comfortably Virginia did win that game on the road against the Blue Devils. And everything runs through Jamari Taylor, right? He is now has 900 over 900 yards. He's about 80 yards shy of making it to the 1,000-yard club. He is the number one in the ACC when it comes to rushing yards. He has 13 rushing touchdowns, which is the second in the ACC, and he's number one in the ACC with yards after contact. And he's also number one in the ACC for missed tackles forced. And this Virginia Tech defense is liable to allow big run games. So this is where Virginia can attack Virginia Tech, and you can tell by the third down conversion. So Virginia is, I believe, third in the ACC or pretty high in the ACC with 49.17% third down conversions. Meanwhile, Virginia Tech has allowed 44.7% of third downs. Virginia leads, I think, FBS among third downs this season, and they've been able to convert those on a good clip, as you saw. The big thing for Virginia, too, is that, yes, you want to establish the run because it's going to open up the passing game because Virginia Tech's main weakness on defense is that secondary. And because Virginia has a lot of options in that wide receiver room, I mean, Trell Harris, I mean, I wrote that story on Trell Harris showing his path to what he is. And in that story, I showed like he's really good with yards after the catch. That is something that Virginia can take advantage of with Virginia Tech's secondary. And they would have to deal with him. They would have to deal with Cam Ross. They would have to deal with Jamal Edrin. And they also have to deal with Sage Ennis, who has an uncanny ability to be open in the end zone for and big opportunities in the middle of the field. So attack the secondary. And the way for you to attack that secondary is by establishing the run. So it all comes down to that. I think Virginia Tech's defensive line and linebackers have shown some improvement. They're very young, so that's a big thing with Virginia Tech. They've had some younger guys step up. It's kind of what I kind of merit to what Virginia experienced the first couple of years with Tony Elliott. They had a couple of young guys that had to step in with all the situations with guys entering the portal and such like that with Virginia Tech. The reason I think Virginia has the edge here as well is because of Chandler Morris. He completes 53.4% of passes when he is pressured. It's something that I've noted in those 10 things, 10 grades, 10 stats that stood out in a win or loss that I do every Sunday after a post game. And it was something that I highlighted in the Wake Forest loss that Daniel Kaelin doesn't bring. I mean, he's only a redshirt freshman, so you don't expect him to possibly polish in that sense. but that's what they missed against the Deacons is that when he's pressured, Chandler Morris still has the uncanny ability to find a a spot to throw the ball or to run with the ball, right? That's what makes Chandler Morris such a special guy for this offense. For that 53.4% completion rate, it is number 1 in the ACC and number 9 in FBS. So Chandler Morris under pressure is really good, which is why I point down to the Wake Forest game as a guys, this the Daniel Kaling was pressured, but you can't compare him to what Chandler Morris was able to do because Chandler Morris is having a really good season when you look at those stats. He also doesn't throw away the ball very much when he's pressured. I think he has a 3% rate on throwing away the ball. Either he throws a slant, he throws those intermediate passes very, very well, or he goes for a run. So he doesn't throw away the ball. He tries to find an avenue for Virginia. Now, when it comes to the defense, this is where you can kind of see an issue when you look at Cam Robinson not being able to play for Virginia, right? This is the matchup where Virginia Tech looks to maybe push for themselves. This is where they think if they can establish the run, they can have a chance at beating Virginia. Virginia Tech has several different options. We saw Overton against Miami kind of come up, the freshman there from the in-state, but Virginia's rushing defense has improved greatly since the NC State game. I know people are going to point that Cam Robinson was not available in that game, and that is fair. That is something that we even discussed that Virginia, if Cam Robinson was playing there, more than likely, NC State probably wouldn't have won that game or be able to run the ball as effectively there. But since the Florida State game, there has been no opponent that has been able to rush for more than 4.0 yards per carry on Virginia. That is a heck of a stat. Virginia's been able to really turn around on that rush defense, and obviously Cam Robinson played a big role on that. Cam Robinson was able to return the game. But also other factors came also to play. Virginia's also been able to get to the quarterback as well. You also have guys like Daniel Rickard and Mitchell Milton playing much better. Mitchell Milton in the beginning was still trying to work on his conditioning from playing more reps. He was also with a more firmer club on his arm. He was also trying to kind of maneuver that and kind of adjust his game that way. And honestly, just reps. I mean, the secondary plays better than against the NC State game. You had a lot of different things going better for Virginia. Devin Neal is playing a really, really good net game. Landon Danley has improved. Maddox Marcellus has improved. So I know you're going to compare it to the NC State game. It's really easy to do that because you're seeing defense without Cam Robinson. But you also have to see how the other levels of the defense has improved comparatively. I mean, when you look at the NC State game, one of the things I observed, and I think I even mentioned it on the podcast and on Wahoo's 24/7, was they looked like hockey line changes when it came to the D line. That doesn't happen anymore. Virginia understands what packages, what situations they need for certain guys. They know, all right, a run situation, they usually put Jameer Carter in there. Jason Hammond is for both. Anthony Britton is for pass. Jacob Holmes in third down. They understand who the guys they want in those situations. Those speed packages with Kazim Moore. These are things that they have figured out through the course of the season. There's a reason why John Brzezinski is being nominated for one of the best assistants in the country. It's because of the development of this defense. I mean, the secondary. We've been able to see what the secondary started the year as, where they lost matches, they missed assignments, and then by the end of this year, you're seeing them winning one-on-one battles. You can point to Cal when Antonio Caleri had that pick. Corey Cosner won a one-on-one battle physically to get that game. Then you saw what they did against Duke. So you're seeing those battles won. So when you put pressure up front, you're confident enough that the secondary can do its job. So a lot of that has changed against NC State, but or Virginia Tech because their passing game isn't there. So Drones has struggled in the passing game. You can say that Pop Watson is a little bit of a passer. There is some talk that Pop Watson might be starting. The guys at VTScoop, and you're going to hear from Kolby Crawford, he still thinks Drones is going to be the guy under center. So that's what we are going to report on because that's what the guys who cover Virginia Tech are saying. There's some noise that Pop might be there. But again, I think the pressure that Virginia is being able to do on the defensive line against a offensive line that has allowed 27 sacks on the year, I think is a very good matchup for Virginia. So that is the kind of the key things for Virginia. For Virginia's defense, you're stopping the run. for Virginia's offense. You are cementing that run game so you can take advantage in the passing game in the secondary. I mean, you're kind of trying to do what you did to Duke, right? You're trying to get that balanced offense so that you can control the clock and keep Virginia Tech off the field so they can't rush the ball, but also just, I take advantage of all your opportunities. I think the line was at 8 last time I checked. It's actually changed a little bit there. I think after the Cam Robinson injury was officially put out there in public at Tony Elliott's press conference. We're gonna hear Kobe Crawford here in a bit about our take and what his prediction is. My prediction is, and um, I do not think this is a close game. I mentioned it on 2 other podcasts I've been on this week, and my prediction is Virginia is gonna win more comfortably than even, fans expect. I think everyone's expecting a close game, and honestly, I probably should learn of my lesson this year and say that, this is a game that Virginia should win, and a lot of times they have been closer games, like you look at Washington State. But I think seeing what they were able to do with Duke, get this bye week underneath their belt and getting healthier, and also their focus here against, prior to the week to Washington State, some players went back home. This week, everyone was in town. So I think Virginia is going to be able to win this more comfortably. So we'll see. But before I kind of take it to break and bring Kobe Crawford, I'm going to have Antonio Clary and James Jackson kind of leave their thoughts on this game. Because if you were to think 2 guys, well, what 2 of 5 guys, really, because there's a few guys who have been on this team since before Tony Elliott even got here. You look at James Jackson and Antonio Clary. Antonio Clary was part of this team the last time Virginia beat Virginia Tech in 2019. This game means a lot for them. So I'm going to leave it to them before we catch the break.
This game and it's kind of like bragging rights. But it's also just, you want one of these, like, it's a rivalry game, and obviously it's been a few years where we haven't kept it competitive, and that's something you think about a lot. And I would say just a lot of confidence from us this year and how we're approaching it. I think for me, I get emotional just thinking about this game and how much it kind of means for me personally and for this program. I think, and for my family, for being a kid from Virginia, being from that area, like it's a huge game. So I would say, yeah, it's definitely one that kind of circle. And when you get to this week, you feel it as soon as the week starts. I would say, I think about the ones that haven't been able to win against this team, but it's kind of, I'm more worried about this year. We talk about it a lot is what we didn't, we don't have a lot of things that we talk about, like a lot of numbers, like, oh, we're the first team of this many years to do it. But we talk about 25, like 2025, the Virginia team, and what that means to us and what we're going to be able to say about that team after this year is done. So
I was speaking to one of my teammates early on in the week, and I was saying it's crazy how, like, my first year I got here, like, beat Tech and had a 9-win season, went to the bowl game, all that stuff, ACC championship, all that. And then being able to possibly do that again my last year here is pretty sweet. But yeah, just, continue to trust the process, believe in the plan. And obviously I've been through a lot of injuries, which is why I'm still here. But, it's all God's plan from the start. So, but it's definitely cool to see how, where this program has come from, having success my first year here and then, hitting a slump and then, getting the program back to where it needs to be.
And welcome back to the Good Old Podcast. We bring in VTScoop's Kobe Crawford to the show. As we talked in the first half of the show, Virginia has a pretty big game against in-state rival Virginia Tech. Kolby, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Always fun to come on here ahead of the Commonwealth Clash. So looking forward to talking some Hokies and Who's.
Yeah, I mean, you've been quite busy, right? This has been an eventful couple of weeks for you, a couple of months for you. But obviously, James Franklin is a new head coach. And I know everyone wants to talk about the game on Saturday, but we need to start with obviously the big news coming out of Blacksburg, which is James Franklin being named the new head coach. You guys had it pretty early on that he was one of the top targets for the job. So how has it been that first week with him in charge?
Yeah, I think like you said, a good word is crazy. It's definitely been extremely busy after you've had multiple lean weeks in a row with recruiting obviously trailing off when your coach has been fired and games on the field really sort of sailing out the window once you fire your coach. When you fire your coach, you pretty much punt on the season, you know? So there were definitely quite a few lean weeks while the coaching search was really ramping up. But that last weekend against Miami, it was always sort of talked about during the coaching search. If you can get a coach in place once they zeroed in on Franklin to make that weekend a pretty big experience to get recruits on campus and try and build towards a 2026 season. And that's what they tried to do. They hosted quite a large batch of official visitors, unofficial visitors to try to make that a big spectacle at home. Now, I know this weekend, obviously, the team is super centered around Virginia and going to Charlottesville, but they're still going to be hosting official visitors and other guys, even without a game, which is sort of rare when you are at that liberty to hire a new head coach who's not going to go on the road with the team to finish out the rest of the year. So there's definitely a new sense, a lot of old traditions, a lot of things starting to trickle back out from the program that have been dormant for quite a while. So there is definitely a buzz in the air, but definitely cautious optimism because even though while it seems like a perfect pairing, there's definitely still seems like some hesitancy just to you never really know. But more excitement in the air than that there has been.
When you see the vibe around the locker room, because obviously this is a lot. This is locker room
Yeah.
didn't know what the future was going to be, right? And then you see how they played against Miami. It felt like, I know there wasn't the scoreline that they wanted, but it felt like Virginia Tech had a little bit more fight in them.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you see that a little bit more because of the James Franklin hiring? You see a little bit in the locker room, maybe a little bit of enthusiasm to kind of showcase the new head coach, like, hey, this is what I can bring to the table. Like Jeffrey Everton had a really good game against the Canes.
Yeah, and I'd highly recommend get over to Wahoo's 24/7 and check out the article that's about to drop about the 5 questions because I feel like we touched on this a little bit in there. But yeah, it's really big to see where the locker room is at. When obviously your coach gets fired, there's so many emotions. You committed to that guy to go play for him, and when that changes, it's really hard to stay bought in. So, but once you get that new coach, you're pretty much it's almost every week that you're playing is a tryout. You know, you have to try out for retention, and every exposure point is another opportunity to stay and see if they want to make you a cornerstone of the next era. Or, I mean, the tough reality of college football right now, if you're going to be slowly processed out of the program. So when you go out there, it's pretty much like a job interview. You talk about Jeff Overton, obviously a highly rated 4-star running back out of the state of Virginia, up in Hayfield in Northern Virginia last year. Got injured in bowl prep last year, wasn't even expected back. And that's someone that you can really see and start to build your roster around, build your offense around in years to come. So to see him flash early, he's added a nice element, especially that running game. When Virginia Tech has been so limited in the passing game. So to get another weapon there running, it's been a nice addition. But yeah, I would say the locker room is unified, even with the tough situation. I think interim coach Montgomery deserves a ton of credit for the job he's done between the portal opening, guys stepping away from the team, a whole host of things to even provide efforts like that against Louisville. I know they came up short, but that effort, and I know they lost to Miami, but to even have some fight in that game, and I mean, obviously it's a Commonwealth Clash. If you can't get up for rivalry week, you're not going to get up for any game. So that'll be a pretty easy rallying cry. Obviously, both sides know what's on the line, and both coaches will definitely play into the feelings of what this rivalry means.
Yeah, I mean, who could have written a script better, right? Virginia needing to win against an in-state rival to play in the ACC championship at home with a new head coach being named in Blacksburg just a week earlier. I mean, this is the perfect rivalry weekend script, right? Coming into this matchup.
Crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because obviously the history of it, like, you can talk about Alabama fans, no matter what, they'll always feel like going down to Jordan Hare. There's some voodoo magic in that building. Virginia is on a magical run, controls their destiny to go to the ACC championship game. I mean, what a job by Tony Elliott, Chandler Moore, some of these guys coming in. Just what a magical run of a season. And it's going to come down. You control your destiny. You're not counting on anyone else to do anything else to beat the in-state team that's got you 23 out of the last 25 times. You've got everything right in front of you, and it's just that monkey off the back. It was like Tony Elliott there, there was when they went on that run and won the national championship, he literally walked around and it was like, okay, now the monkey's off our back. That's what it feels like. Is this team going to be able to break through and get obviously the ACC championship game, control their destiny essentially to try and get to the college football playoff? It's going to be really interesting. There's a ton of very interesting matchup dynamics I'm excited to see on Saturday.
Yeah, and actually, we're going to talk about the matchups now. Obviously, the big question is at quarterback for Virginia Tech. Kyron Drones, a little bit banged up in that Miami game. Pop Watson came in for Virginia Tech. Seemed to do pretty well. I know he had that, obviously turnover, but it seemed to do pretty well in the passing game, a little bit better than what we saw with Drones. Do you expect Drones to play? And then I feel like this is a very big matchup for Virginia Tech because Virginia's secondary has improved a lot over the course of this season. And what Miami was able to do against the passing game was pretty much stop Virginia Tech. So I feel like that for Virginia Tech, that's a big matchup to keep an eye on. And for Virginia, that's something where they can think they got the edge.
Yeah. Besides the secondary, it's been a struggle even when, route concepts are running open and delivering the ball on time. That's been an issue. Circling back to your first point, I don't expect the health issue of Kyron Drones. He got banged up against Miami. I don't think that will be anything that limits him. I do expect him to start against Virginia. I know, obviously, a lot of people around Virginia Tech have been clamoring for Pop Watson to just try. Like you said, he brought that spark, just a different look. And Virginia fans aren't unaccustomed to Pop Watson. Obviously, the third-string quarterback last year came in 300-plus total yards in the 37-17 win at Lane last year. So they're familiar with him. He's done it. He's beat them at this level. But I do think they're going to stick with Kyron Drones. Now, is there a package? Is there a point in the game where it's okay, we go to Pop? I'm not sure. This week of practice still has to play out. We're recording this here on Monday, but I would still expect Kyron Drones to come back, and I wouldn't expect him to be limited by any health issues. But Virginia Tech has had a ton of struggles this year. Arguably the largest struggle is the passing game, the vertical passing game. Just in general, the passing game part of the offense. It's been really, really difficult, not only protection-wise, the five guys up front in the passing game, but even when concepts are running open, delivering the ball on time. They just haven't been able to connect. Kyron Drones he's had a tough year. Seeing drop-off in completion percentage, turnover issues at times. They've really had to lean on that running game. They're third in the country in offensive rushing efficiency or yards per attempt, whatever it is, behind Oregon and Georgia Tech, I believe. So, but when your offense becomes that one-dimensional, UVA can start to bring 8 guys down in the box, and then you can't really make them pay in the secondary because even when they do that, you're not holding them honest. So I think that's why a lot of people have been clamoring for the Pop Watson to try and just provide a spark, to just add a little bit of balance to the offense because they've been so efficient running the football. You talk about Marcellus Hawkins, the transfer from Central Missouri. He's been a great addition. Now, he got a little banged up against Miami, had a shoulder deal. His status is still a little TBD because that's really big. That's been their workhorse back. You have Terrion Stewart from Bowling Green, who's shown flashes all year, but he's also had his injury concerns. You talked about the true freshman Jeff Overton, who's popped onto the scene the last couple of weeks. I would expect him to get quite a heavy touch share in this game. And then you can't rule out, while Kyron Drones has had his struggles through the air, he's added a nice element in the running game. So they've been dominant in setting that, averaging very respectable numbers in the rushing game. But it's just, if you get behind, you can't get into a shootout with UVA because they just can't dig themselves out of those holes throwing the football. This game turns into something where UVA gets up 1 score, 2 score, and Kyron Drones just throw the ball 30-plus times. That plays right into UVA's hands. So obviously UVA secondary has had a really nice year, and Virginia Tech really hasn't been able to display any of their skill guys to that effect because they just haven't had the opportunities on offense.
How has Drones handled the pressure when you've seen him playing? Because Virginia's defensive line has done a really good job as well this year, especially because they've had depth this year, right? Last year, when they faced off Virginia Tech, they really only had 2 defensive tackles. They were healthy at that point, completely healthy. This year, they're rotating like 6-7 guys just in the interior alone. So what have you seen from him and honestly the offensive line? What are some things that you've noticed from Virginia Tech this season?
Yeah, pass pro has been really tough for the offensive line. It's a young group that doesn't have that much depth as you look at it. They had some injuries going into camp. Montavious Cunningham out for the year. Brody Meadows out for the year. So you're already lost bodies in a room that wasn't very deep. They've been tough in pass pro, like we said. In running game, they've been pretty well. Kyron Drones, when he gets off his spot, it's a lot tougher for him to operate. He hasn't been really kept clean, sacked 5 times against Miami. Obviously, 2 arguably first-round pick guys there on the end. that made his day really difficult. But even against other teams, forcing him to roll out, and that's not a winning script, especially when he rolls out. Very, very seldom does keep the eyes downfield and find someone. It's kind of always just a rollout and throw away, or try and get what you can with the legs. So if you do get pressure on drones, like I said, that passing game gets really limited. And if you get pressure on them, it's going to make your day a whole lot easier, because they have not been efficient when he's been pressured.
Defensively, I feel like Virginia Tech has grown in some areas as well this year. Where have you seen the most improvement for this Virginia Tech team? And do you feel like there's any sort of matchup that you're eyeing on that side of the ball?
On defense specifically, I think it'll be two things. I mean, the defensive line has really gone super dormant here in the back half of this ACC schedule, has not been able to get any real pressure from the end spot.
Linebacker seems to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. You can point to sort of any point in the defense and really poke some holes in it. I guess that's where you get when you go 3-8. There's a lot of things to point to.
Right.
I mean, I would say the linebacking core, you definitely see a lot of promise. The true freshman Noah Chambers coming out of DeMatha, he's really stepped on the scene as a true freshman guy. He plays fast and physical and hard to the ball, which is, as a true freshman guy at the linebacker position playing inside, that's all you want. Now, there's coachable points where you'll always go back to the drawing board, but you don't see him thinking. He's just playing hard and fast, and that's good. The other linebacker position, I think Caleb Woodson's had some solid moments. Jaden Keller's had some solid moments. Caleb Spencer, Miami transfer, he's really come on, had a nice year. So I think that linebacker core has definitely stabilized a little bit. I mean, when you talk about the defensive line, they just haven't been able to get pressure. Chandler Morris, in the same way, I mean, most quarterbacks, when you get pressure on them, it makes your day a whole lot easier. I know he's obviously been a little banged up. Looks like he's getting back healthy, though, which is good. And their offensive line has done a pretty solid job of keeping him clean. I know he got sacked quite a bit there early, but I think overall the offensive line has fought for them. I haven't followed it so closely. But, yeah, I mean, if that defensive line can't really get any pressure, that's been the issue, because they haven't gotten pressure, and this Virginia Tech secondary is young and inexperienced. Dante Lovett entered the transfer portal after Brent Pry. Josh Clark was slated to be a starting cornerback this year, tore his ACL in spring ball. You want to talk about Caleb Brown. You brought in the transfer from Hawaii. He hurts his shoulder, out for the year. Starting safety, Quentin Reddish, out for the year. It's just, you had to turn. Now, they got depth, but a lot of it is inexperienced or youthful, and they've been really tested because the quarterback has been given 3-4 seconds back there to operate, and it just makes their day a whole lot harder. So how do these young guys step up? Do you see and JoJo Crim's been hurt too, especially in that cornerback room. He hasn't even been out there. So you're really kind of rolling with a skeleton crew of guys. How do they step up to the moment? Because Virginia has some really talented skill players out there as well. And I think Morris has done a really great job this year of just delivering the ball on time, layering throws to all levels of the field. I mean, pressure, yeah, that's one thing. But even without pressure, when he's been given a clean pocket, he's really been able to deliver a nice ball. And it's just Virginia Tech's DBs, they haven't really challenged there much.
I feel like when I'm listening to Virginia Tech, it's some of the things that I remember kind of pointing out to Virginia. I think maybe the first 2 seasons of Tony Elliott, where it was a lot of young guys, a lot of inexperience, a lot of guys that have a lot of potential, raw talent that you can kind of see growing and maturing as the season goes on. But you do have those inexperienced guys that sometimes make those mistakes, those margin of errors, right? The game can be tight and you get those detail oriented. When you see that, what is the biggest thing for Virginia Tech when they go to UVA? What is their kind of the big key for them to take the win away from home?
Yeah, I think the key thing is has to be win the turnover margin and win special teams. Like, this is not going to be something where they just go out scheme them. I think it's pretty clear to anyone who's been watching this year, Virginia has more talent, runs a cleaner operation, and just takes care of business. They don't lose games for themselves. Now, you can look at the NC State game and a couple decisions, but overall, I mean, they control the controllables. They've pretty much won all phases, and they didn't shoot themselves in the foot. So if Virginia Tech wants to do this, they have to go play really fast and physical on defense. Go after the ball. Be aggressive on the ball when it's in the air, and especially on special teams. James Franklin coming back, you talk about what's the vibe. The vibe is bringing back the days of Frank Beamer and what made Virginia Tech great then, and sort of leaning on some of those I guess, themes. And a big part of that was Beamer Bowl. That third phase, everyone wants to talk about winning offense, defense, and special teams. But can you create explosives there? Can you not only just flip the field, but, really change the game? Because if you don't win the turnover battle, get a defensive score, get a special team score, or set yourself up, I don't see yourself going into Charlottesville and coming out with a win. I think they're more talented. They run a cleaner operation, and they kind of just have all year. So I think you're really going to have to do those things. Now, are these guys ready? I mean, just early reports talking to guys. Like I said, I don't think there's going to be any lack of motivation for this game. I think they know what's on the line. Obviously, they're playing with a large chip on their shoulder. Will it come to fruition? I don't know. There's a lot of emotions, but I think that's the only path. I don't think they're just going to go out there and all of a sudden, after a 3-8 year, throw some crazy scheme at the Cavaliers and out scheme them for a win. I think it's going to have to be a rock fight where you get into running the ball 40 times and just slugging one out.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia understands how important special teams is, because against Wake Forest, it was a special teams touchdown that secured the win for the Deacons. So Virginia understands it really is about all three phases of the game and how important.
The Louisville game, they had two defensive scores.
Two defensive scores.
They've been operating on that margin as well. I mean, in the Louisville game, they were almost like 200 yards of offense behind, but that you still come out with a win. Like that's how good programs, that's how good teams win games. It's like you just have to find ways, and Virginia Tech hasn't been able to do that. But I think that is the path to victory.
So final thing, I always have to ask when you come on the show, your predictions and coming into the matchup. It's when you look at this game, and I said this even during preseason where I said Virginia, when people kept asking me which game I thought Virginia was going to win, I actually pointed to the Florida State game. I thought Virginia would win against Florida State during my preseason predictions. And I thought Louisville. But I know one game that I always said, the Virginia Tech game. That's always been something where it's like on paper in this game, Virginia, like you said, they should beat Virginia Tech. And I will probably still choose. No, I'll lie. I will choose Virginia over Virginia Tech. But it's, we see the history of the series.
That's the only that's literally the only thing. It's like when you see 10.5 point favorite from Vegas, everything, like I said, we just laid out there, even like talking it out. It's like, but 23 or 20, it's just, and the stakes of it. It's not just like Virginia is having a good year. They're having a magical season where, everything is in front of them. The ACC championship, college football playoff.
They even have a bye week.
A bye week before, exactly. And that was before even people were looking at that before the year and like, oh, well, they're going to have that bye week, let alone know they're only going to have one loss going into the game or two, whatever it was. And
one conference loss. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be a crazy dynamic because it is. I really do feel like it is that monkey on the back moment. It's going to be such a big inflection. I don't see this being a blowout one way or the other. I just feel like this game is going to be close. It's going to be interesting to see the crowd dynamic. Obviously the last time they were in Charlottesville, the 55-17, I believe. And the whole ordeal with the sprinklers after. And it's a whole different vibe because this team has a lot of real momentum going in Charlottesville. Maybe this is homerism, but it's just, I don't know. When Brent Pry was in all these close games and it came down to it, he never won a one-score game. I was like, I can't pick him in a one-score game until he wins one. Until I see Virginia beat Virginia Tech at a high clip, I think I have to go with Virginia Tech. Even though you look at all the matchup dynamics and they all point to Virginia, it's just you have to prove you can climb that mountain before you get to the mountaintop. And they very well could. They control their destiny. And so I think I'm going Virginia Tech, probably 20-17, low scoring.
Yeah, I get it. Like it's in the beginning of the season, I even joked. I was like, I don't know if I could choose Virginia, but no, knowing this team now this year, watching them, it's kind of what you said. They got a lot of monkeys off their backs. They chase a lot of demons. And someone actually, I forgot who actually said this quote, and it was remarkable. They said, these players don't have the demons that other Virginia players have in the past. Because Virginia went into the portal and grabbed over 30 players in the portal. Yeah. This is almost a brand new roster that hasn't experienced those losses to Virginia Tech. They don't understand. They haven't been here for those history of like being blown out by Virginia Tech when they were meant to be favored. They haven't experienced those bad seasons. So you've got like guys like Chandler Morris who understands how to win championships. You've got Mitchell Melton. They've got all that. So for me, that's why I lean towards Virginia and beating Virginia Tech. And just because you don't have that mentality coming in, this is a whole new roster. This is a whole new locker room.
Yeah.
And also what I've noticed this season is just the veteran leadership. You kind of mentioned with Virginia Tech, you have a young team. And if you know that does make a difference when you are playing in these type of environments. And you've seen that from Virginia. Against Wake Forest, I mean, they had a backup quarterback going in there for most of the game. So you had a redshirt freshman leading the offense. And you saw what happened when you have a little bit more of an experience, especially also when you had other injuries going against Virginia then. But when you have a veteran guy like Chandler Morris against Duke, and you have most of those guys veterans, a lot of older guys. I mean, Antonio Clary is like, what, 25, 26 at DB. Mitchell Melton's in his also early 20s, mid 20s. You got also Jacob Holmes there in defense. So that is why I'm leaning towards Virginia, because of that, how old they are, that veteran leadership. And you're just also expecting, like, these guys haven't been there. They don't understand that Virginia Tech is, you know, in history, Virginia Tech has beaten Virginia even when when Virginia is favored. So
but it's a different team.
So that's the reason why I'm like, I see all the stuff, I see the history, but I think I've seen enough of this team to say that they can snap that. Maybe it's homerism for me covering Virginia and seeing
we'll
that.
see. I don't know. Our official predictions come out Friday. This is Monday, like I said. So maybe I eat Thanksgiving and I watch some more games and I flip. But
yeah, we are recording this on Monday. This podcast coming out on Wednesday morning, since Tony Elliott speaks on Tuesday, but this is the easiest time to record it since it is Thanksgiving week. So actually in the first half of the show, we'll have injury updates, especially like with Cam Robinson's update and status and everything and like that. That was in the first half of the show, recorded on Tuesday.
That'll be pretty big.
Yes. That'll be pretty big. But although I will say Virginia has a good linebacker group, although when you look back at the NC State game, they didn't have Cam Robinson, and you can point to how different this defense is with Cam Robinson there.
Without a doubt.
But at least
with Courtney too, high school teammates with Jeff Overton at Freedom. So
Cam Courtney has kind of moved up the depth chart. You know, with Sedarian Harrison being hurt, you know, he kind of moved as a number 2 guy behind Cam Ross in the slot, and I've been able to use in different positions. So Virginia has been working him a little bit more in that offense a little bit, especially you see him out there on third down a lot. And actually you see another guy like Dylan Newton Short, also been another Virginia kid. You see a lot of Virginia guys now coming in, a lot of freshmen making something. You have Corey Cosner. He's not a Virginia kid. He's from Maryland, but his mom is a UVA alumnus. So, and it kind of, you know how it is, Kolby. Although he's from Maryland, that's like a 5-hour radius, right?
Yeah, I was going to say it's right there.
It's right there. So I know Maryland's a different state, but every time I say you got to recruit in state, I kind of include the DMV, the near Maryland area, and even heck, North Carolina. Those are the areas. And it's going to be fun to see how James Franklin and Tony Elliott kind of go at each other during this.
It's going to be interesting seeing also who ends up on Franklin's staff, obviously. Some guys up there at Penn State. So
speaking of which, Kolby, I can't leave you on the show without asking you, have you heard anything about assistant coaches possibly following? Obviously, Virginia fans would like to know, since there's 2 Virginia staff members in the Penn State. Have you heard any?
Definitely have heard a little bit. Dex is honestly, I hadn't heard much about Hagens until, like I said, this on Monday. I just got off the phone a couple hours ago, hearing actually some smoke about Hagens following to Virginia Tech. Dex, I think, is going to be really interesting. Obviously, a co-defensive coordinator for a really long time at Penn State. And I think that draw is going to be tough, obviously, with his relationship to the University of Virginia and Virginia Tech. You know, that's a pretty stark contrast. Obviously, he's a James Franklin guy. Great relationship. But I don't know. I think that'd be a really tough pull. I've talked to some people, and there's some people on VTScoop.com who would know better than me. And right now, I don't really see that one coming to fruition. There have been talks about it, but you know, there's talks of him maybe being a defensive coordinator at a lower level Power 4 school or some other school, and you know, finally calling plays. But you know, I think Franklin would be enthused to get him in as a safeties coach, co-DC. It's just obviously there's a different dynamic being at Virginia Tech versus Penn State and his roots, and maybe ending up where he eventually wants to end up. So I'm not so sure about that one. There's definitely obviously conversations about it. There's conversations with guys down at ODU, Longrani and Decker and some of those names. So we're monitoring it all. VTScoop.com will keep you updated, but that's kind of what we're hearing here on Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I said, James Franklin has a reputation of recruiting this area very well. Tony Elliott has been doing well recruiting-wise as well in state,
Derek
especially
Fisher,
in
Gene Jones. Like when those two popped, it was like 2 in 2 days. It's like, I mean, those are two really, really
and
dynamic
then
guys.
Derek Fisher a couple days later.
Yeah.
So Virginia is
I was
going
gonna
to
say Derek Fisher. I mean, I don't know if people have seen him. That is very, very special ball player. Someone who's obviously a cousin of Mike Vick, but I mean, someone who is just after seeing him play live, UVA should be very excited. Got a very talented player in him.
Yeah, I think Virginia finally is kind of cracking in a couple of those in-state, like in Richmond, they've done a really good job, but now they're hindering into obviously the Tidewater area and the 757 area. They're going into Southwest Virginia a little bit. Probably have some news about a kid out of Roanoke on Wahoo's 24/7 coming out soon. But yeah, so a lot of good things.
Persinger still on the team from Salem? Josiah Persinger?
He is, yes. Yeah, he is. He actually had some snaps as a freshman as well.
Yeah.
So he's really, really good. So yeah, no, Virginia has started to put a little bit more footprint in the state of Virginia, building those inroads that kind of were lost a little bit under the former staff. So it's gonna be interesting in January when both coaches hit the road on the recruiting trail. Kolby for coming on late on Monday night to do that preview for us. It's a shortened week with Thanksgiving on Thursday, so we wanted to get it out there really early. So we kind of met on Monday since everything else for us is kind of crammed into both Tuesday and Wednesday. So I appreciate him coming on at 10 o'clock at night. It was a late night recording there. So I appreciate it to Kolby. And of course, thank you for listening. It's Thanksgiving. So I need to say thank you for everyone who has listened, who has supported not only the podcast, but my work over at Wahoo's 24/7. It's really appreciative. You guys have stuck by us several years now since I joined the beat back in 2021. So I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you, and I look forward to continuing to cover Virginia, and hopefully we'll have some good news and more things to cover next week. Obviously I will be in Charlotte if Virginia football does get to the title game. I will also be covering National Signing Day on Wednesday. 13 current high school commits will be signing with Virginia. A few of them will be early enrolling in January. And of course, December means that we're closing in on the transfer portal. So a lot of stuff is going to happen. So I'm grateful for all of you for following my work. And of course, I hope all of you have a safe and happy Thanksgiving with your families. Have a good rest of your week, everybody.